there's something pretty cool that's happening with some recent feedback I've been getting from people. I've been getting more of that feedback via the fourfold, so it's like live reactions or live feedback as part of conversations being had on Discord, because the fourfold is the name of our Discord server, which you can join if you're willing to become a patron of mine via Patreon. Small donations every month. Could not do it without you, by the way. I very much depend on your kind support. The link is below if you want to check my Patreon. You get access to that Discord server as well as bonus videos every 2 or 3 weeks on a topic of your choosing. And so I'm interacting with patrons more than ever. And among those patrons, as you might not be surprised to hear, there's a majority of INFJs, but there's not only INFJs. At least there's ENFPs there, ENTPs, possibly an INTP, bunch of other ones. And the reaction to my videos that I've been getting from non-INFJs has been so interesting. And I want to go further than this and say, like, from non-NI dominant, I'm not talking about INTJs, because the reactions that INTJs have toward my work is usually quite is not that different from the reactions of INFJs. And I think it's not that surprising, because, an INTJ will see the excavation of NI and relate to that, okay? But so interesting has been the reaction of non-INFJs, because essentially what they've been saying, particularly NTPs in this instance, and NFPs, so people who are not on the NISE axis, people who are on the NESI axis, a very vast difference, right? They have still been saying that a lot of my work resonates with them in a deep way. And no doubt that's part of why they've been watching my content. It's part of why they even became patrons, joined the fourfold, our Discord server, and we're having chats there, because they feel seen, they feel understood by me in my work, in my books, and in my videos, even though, well, in some cases, we're talking about people who don't have any four stack functions in common with INFJs, like ENFPs, for example. Like I said, in the case of ENTPs and INTPs, there are functions in common, but still vastly different types. It's true that so far I've only attracted people who identify as intuitives. There's not a lot of sensors in my audience, it seems, which is interesting in itself. But their feedback is so interesting because what it suggests to me, what it got me thinking, it got me thinking, okay, so how come they relate so much to what I'm talking about, right? Because I'm, certainly claiming to be talking about NI and SE and FE and TI for the most part. My world, my framework revolves around that, right? So does that suggest that maybe I'm not saying things that are specifically NI, that I'm being too vague in my descriptions, in my architecture? Certainly that was one of my questionings, but I've come to realize that it's actually not that at all. It's the fact that what I do is Jungian existentialism. You've heard this phrase before. It's on the cover of both of my books, which I can, by the way, introduce to you. The Infinite Soul is my latest one, INFJ Life in the Modern World, looking at how INFJs can lead happy, purposeful, and meaningful lives in the world today. You can check the link below, the first link, if you're interested in getting the book. Check the reviews. I'll talk about the first one at the end of this video, but I do talk about being a practitioner of Jungian existentialism, and basically Jungian existentialism is a way of saying there's an INFJ way to be, there's an ENFP way to be, there's an INTJ way to be, there's an ENTP way to be, there's an ISFJ way to be, there's an ESFP way to be. and so on. There's 16 ways to be in the world as a human. And in fact, once you zero in on a particular type, like my type, the INFJ type, within this sort of family of ways of being INFJ, there's at least 5 specific ways of being INFJ, my 5 subtypes, okay? And probably will be more subtypes as I continue empirically to discover and explore and articulate those other families, subfamilies of INFJs. So there's lots of ways to be. Ways to be what, ultimately? Ways to be human. And that's what existentialism is interested in, is interested in the structure of consciousness and how the structure of consciousness interacts with how we phenomenally experience the world, ourselves, and ourselves in the world. So what these people, these non-INFJs, who I've been, interacting with, in some cases quite deeply, are saying is not that my framework is vague. They're saying that my framework is universal. And it makes sense because Jungian existentialism talks about the human being from a perspective, right? I'm always highly aware and hopefully literate and articulate in speaking from an anti-dominant perspective, of speaking from an INFJ perspective. So everything that I write is going to be colored with that. Everything that you as an INFJ write will be colored with that. But my work is very self-aware about this and makes this part of the theory itself. But it's still about the human being. So the structures that I'm describing, what I'm saying about NI, when I'm saying about SE, the dominant, the inferior, the influence on the phenomenology of the person, the life world of the person, on love, laughter, these other things, they're not just about INFJs. They're about the human from an INFJ perspective. You notice it's a subtle difference, but it's a real difference. They are about the human from an INFJ perspective. I use my perspective as an angle, as a prism through which to see a condition which is universal. And these people who are not INFJs and who recognize themselves in what I'm saying, they see that I'm speaking from an INFJ perspective, but what they relate to is the universality of what's talked about. And that is actually quite exciting because it suggests to me that in my future works, I will remain focused on NI, as you know, and the INFJ in general, but NI is a core interest of mine. But I will hesitate less and less to make claims that I think apply to all the types. It's just that my coloring is an NI-dominant coloring. I still have access to universal. And the feedback I'm getting from non-INFJs reading my books is really confirming me in that idea. And it's exciting. So let me know in the comments if you're excited as well. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts, always deep thoughts. And the book I was mentioning earlier, The Ecstatic Soul, new look at the INFJ personality. It's the deepest investigation of the type you will find online, particularly the mind of the INFJ. What's it like to think like an INFJ? What's it like to feel like an INFJ? And to be an INFJ. If you're interested, check the link below to The Ecstatic Soul, check the reviews. It's also helped a lot of people. And hopefully see you soon, guys. Don't forget my Patreon. Take care of yourself and see you tomorrow for sure on my part.